Deb, take it. Or we're going to have the song first. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to open with a song that is written by Pat Luboff right here, and her husband, and she's from Nashville. I realized this might be part of the Nashville sound. You know, Nashville is certainly known for music. So we're going to open up with it.
You don't have to try. You can take it easy. Lay your burdens down. You already please me. If you're looking for heaven, you don't have to look too far. Know that you are loved just because you are. You belong to me. You're my greatest treasure. Don't you ever doubt. I have made you precious. In my eyes you are shining, brighter than the brightest star. Know that you are loved just because you are. If you ever forget that there's nothing to fear, I can help you remember why you are here. On the day I made you, I gave the world a gift. One and only you, and that gift is yours to give. My love has been planted to blossom from your heart. Know that you are loved just because you are. Know that you are loved just because you are.
Oh, so beautiful. That's the second song. And maybe at the end we'll hear the other song, which we did last week, which has a lot of liveliness in it. And thank you so much, Pat.
Thank you, Deb, and thank you, Cindy, for putting those wonderful photos on that. They're just, so beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. I also want to say we thank everyone who participated last week, because Rosalyn had asked to kind of tell a little about yourself and what it is that you want to see more of in our hour together. The name of this hour is called Join Us Tuesdays for Present Happiness. And it recognizes that in this world, there's a lot of reason not to be happy. But as the Course in Miracles says, in this moment of right now, which you can call a holy instant, you can let go of the past, because the past is really, the past exists in time, and only the ego lives in time. Spirit lives in eternity, and the only time for the eternal is right now. And right now, and right now, and no moment of now is connected to the last moment of now. So there is no judgment in the now. That's probably the difference between heaven and what's not heaven. In heaven, there is no judgment. There's nothing outside of you to judge. I'm just going to mention that today's reading, for those people who do go along with the Course in Miracles, The reading for today is chapter 18, section 6. I know a lot of people just do the lessons. Robert Perry in the Circle of Atonement many years ago started a daily lesson from the textbook. And people at ACIM gather, which I started many years ago, do the daily textbook reading and the lesson every single morning. Today's textbook lesson was chapter 18, section 6, Beyond the Body. And I don't know how many people do the course. I'm not asking if you do the course or not, but it's easy to check it up. You can just go to acim.org, and they have a wonderful search engine. You can just put in Beyond the Body and in the textbook, and the very first line, this is what the very first two sentences say. There is nothing outside of you. This is what you must ultimately learn, for it is the realization that the kingdom of heaven is restored to you. So as long as we blame or shame or guilt or point the finger or think that somebody has done anything wrong, we're making the world very real, which means there's a lot of things going on outside of you, and it's really a case of mistaken perception. Our lovely Miss Bile, I can't think of her first name, the gymnast who basically dropped out of a few things because she said she's had the twisties. Now, I never heard of the twisties, but I bet a lot of people have started to learn about the twisties in the past week. And the funny thing about the twisties is it sounds exactly like mistaken perception, because she actually says, when I'm upside down, I can't tell what's up and what's down, which is actually dangerous. She calls it a mental health condition. That's the exact same thing that the Course in Miracles is saying. It's a mental health condition. Actually, the Course uses the word level confusion. And most people who do the Course understand what level confusion is. Or maybe you don't understand, but you know that it exists. And it's the difference between the mind of God, which is the mind of the Son of God, because we are one mind, not two or three, and the belief in bodies or form, which is obviously a lower way of seeing, which is called perception, where you see differences. In Christ's vision, there are no differences. All things are seen as the same, as the same. After last week, I happened to think of what came across my desk. Some of you may know the name Krishnamurti, who's a very famous Indian guru. And he's famous for saying, do you want to know my secret? No matter what happens, he says, I don't mind. No matter what happens, I don't mind. Believe it or not, that's the same as lesson 1. Nothing I see here means anything. Why should I mind? So the Course and all the gurus throughout time, I don't care which one, will tell you that if you take anything here seriously, it's a case of mental health. You're actually believing in what the body's eyes see, the body's ears hear, and the body's brain is thinking. And Jesus will tell you in A Course in Miracles, you have eyes that don't see, you're blind. You have ears that don't hear, you're deaf. And you have a mind that you think thinks and it doesn't think. I came across for myself as I was going into all of this past weekend, it came to me, and those people who do the Course know that he uses the word magic a lot. And magic normally for me means that, well, if I have a headache, I can take the magic, which is I'll take a couple of aspirin and maybe the headache will go away. Or I was saying tonight, I took some Aleve tonight, I took the magic. And he says, it's okay to take the magic. Just know that the magic is just replacing one thing with another. That's not true healing. And true healing is called the miracle. And the miracle is nothing more and nothing less than reversing the up and the down so that you recognize that you're the cause. You are the dreamer of the dream. You're not the victim of the dream. You're not having to point your finger at other people and say, they did this to me. No, I did it to myself. That's the secret of salvation. So I just kind of want to start off a little on the note. My usual tagline, which I've had since I got on the internet, is laughter now saves lifetimes later. And it really is saying that if you take things seriously, well, you can if you wish, but sooner or later, you're going to look back and laugh at it because they were just your thoughts. And the real magic is not the aspirin or taking the Aleve. The real magic is your thoughts. The belief that you can think your way out of something, which is really the ego thinking for you, controlling the way you see things. Well, I can do this and I can do that. The miracle is not having any thoughts at all. The miracle is having no thoughts, which is a quiet mind. Simply do this, be still, quiet your mind. Rosalyn does really well at that because she's going to give us the process very soon. So it's all about my willingness to recognize I do this to myself. And there's that one line in the last unanswered question, chapter 21, section 7. I always say that Jesus is laughing when he says this. He says, can't you see that all of your misery, all your pain, suffering comes from your strange belief that you, the Son of God, is powerless? That thought that I am this small, tiny body in an ocean of bodies or an ocean of the universe. I mean, who am I? So there's that one section in the course called littleness versus magnitude. And he says, you will never, ever be content with littleness. You must remember your magnitude. And I think that is in chapter 15, maybe section 3, littleness versus magnitude. So I would recommend two things if you want a little homework: Beyond the Body, chapter 18, section 6, and littleness versus magnitude. Fabulous reading. And when you read, like I do a deep dive into the textbook reading along with Lynn Johnson from ACIM Gather on Sundays, Sunday mornings, and on Tuesday mornings. And you take it paragraph by paragraph and you look at each paragraph and kind of go over it until you're laughing. You can start laughing at each paragraph. On a slightly different note, before I turn this mic on over to you, Rosalyn, a lot of you know John Monday, who is a very old friend of mine from, I know John from back in 1975. I met him. He had just met Helen Schuckman at the time. I just met him. I didn't know he had anything to do with the course. I never even heard of the course in 75. Later, I found the course in 77. And about a year later, I found out that John was doing the same course. Later, 2 years later, he married Suzanne, who's my wife at the time. She passed recently. And he married us in October of 81. And I wrote the vows for that marriage back in 81. And it says, let us commit our relationship to remember that we are one. And I still see that we are one. Maybe her body's not here, but for sure, we are of one mind always. So without further ado, I'm going to say a little about John. I've been calling him at the hospital. He had a couple of days where the doctor said, you're going to be out of here soon because your vitals are moving up. And today when I called him, I heard that he just contracted pneumonia, which is not a good thing because now he has the COVID. It started with Lyme disease, which weakened his system. So the COVID, he is vaccinated, but because of the Lyme disease, his system was compromised, and the COVID took effect, and now they're adding pneumonia to the diagnosis. So I was going to say, let us pray together for a healing. We don't know what anything is for. We really don't. And we just turn it over to the Holy Spirit. And knowing that all is perfect, that all are perfectly cared for. And this is always true, no matter what the circumstances or the conditions are. I would say let's take 10 seconds of quiet and then turn it over to you, Rosalyn.
We hold John close to us in the oneness that he is, in the oneness that we are, in the oneness that is the one. Oneness brought Dove and I together. Oneness married Dove and Suzanne, and John was very much a part of that. And we're part of each other here tonight in this opening to the holy instant for all of us, into the oneness. Cindy, would you put up that PDF that I sent you today? Thank you.
Yeah, just give me a minute.
Yeah, I'll give you a minute and I'll chat while it's coming up. Thank you, Dove, for the way you integrate, the way you speak, the way the Course is you and you are the Course. It's not a separate thing that you talk about. It's a thing that's lived inside you. And we appreciate when we hear how something's embodied in somebody versus a lot of talk. And it's very deep when it comes from you. And I heard some things. Thank you, Cindy. I had my eyes closed. I don't know when you put that up. Here's a new slide of the tug of war, just slightly different. I don't know, those of you who have seen it before, you might recognize a few slight differences. And Dove, if you see, I added the knot that you had in another slide that talked about how the knot we self-impose. So while we were making a new slide for intellectual property reasons, we made this. The rope represents our tug of war with everything that is a moment of non-oneness, if there were such a word, if there was suffering, if there was thinking that verges on preoccupation. You know, we can have a thought, oh, the light turned green. That's not the thought that a Course is talking about when it says stop your thinking. I believe it's talking about the obsessional thinking that we do. And most of us have a subject that we are more sensitive about. It could be our children, it could be a partner, it could be our bodies, it could be our money, it could be our house, it could be anything that we are struggling about, anything we want more of, something we want less of. Wanting is a clear indication that in this second, this millisecond, a story is going on. And stories keep us from the radical now. And that's my term for the now and the now and the now that Dove just talked about. Because there's only this millisecond. And if there's a story, then there's past and future and guaranteed suffering. Guaranteed suffering. And I like this new slide for a couple of reasons. everything's dark and you can't quite see whether this being, or even looks like his head is separated from his body. I didn't notice that before in this picture anyway. But that's kind of good too, because that's a disembodied self. That's not the holy self that resonates with the holy instant that is one with our brothers and sisters and knows we are the divine. But it's kind of gritted teeth. This being has gritted teeth, but I like that it's almost a smile if you look at it in a certain way, because a lot of times we don't notice that we're struggling if we think that we're winning, we're getting more, we're getting the new house, we're doing well, we're efforting, but it's going well. So we don't notice all the work that's going into this. And I like this slide now too, because of the weather. There's a lot of weather going on outside. And yet this being is actually not noticing that lively green earth underneath. Because of the struggle takes over. Thank you, Cindy. Now let's think of whatever is our frequent preoccupation, the thing we think of. Maybe there's a symptom in your body. Maybe there's somebody who you think if they only did this or that, you could be happy. Or if it's your body, or doesn't matter what it is, makes no difference. Just let's think of it, whatever it was. If you don't have a consistent preoccupation, just think of something that might have annoyed you today. Just a moment, the computer didn't work, something didn't open. It could be small. It's even better if it's big. Pick your big thing if you have one and give it a number. That's something I like to do always. And let's take some moments to leave that stressed being, that picture of what it's like to effort and to even have spirituality be on the other end of that rope. I want to be enlightened. I want to be freer. I want the miracle. I want whatever it is you think you want. But join me right now in this second as we fill your whole being with light. And while we're doing this, let's fill John's being with light. And let's surround our whole being from head to toe with light. And let's surround John with light from head to toe, inside his fingers, inside his toes, inside ours, inside everywhere, around your organs. Everything is lit up. You find all the crevices and notice how it's lit, the front, the back, the bottom, the top. And now let's surround ourselves with light outside ourselves. And it's in the back, and it's on the top, and it's in front, and it's underneath. And the same for John. And now let's imagine that we've left the room that we're in, and we've left the room outside in the building, and we're in the weather. And now we're in the ocean. And when we're in the ocean, we can better imagine that there's a flow. The ocean is the flow. Life interacts, it depends on the weather. So the current changes, but there isn't a being in charge of the ocean. And we're like the waves in the ocean. And we might imagine that we're separate from the ocean. We might be small and the ocean is big, but that doesn't make it so. Imagination doesn't mean truth. And luckily, science is now backing us up. Us meaning the sages that have lived forever, that have said that there is only life. There aren't separate beings. We appear to be a localization, a separation, because we look different from each other. But that doesn't make it so. We're all beings of potential. Quantum physics says we're energy potential. That's the magnitude that Dove speaks of. We are that. And I love the question, what am I? Even more than who am I? Who am I sometimes conjures up a separate person, and a separate person conjures up unworthiness. So now let's go back to breathing in ourselves as the ocean. The ocean needs nothing. The ocean wants nothing. And the ocean is everything, just as we are. We are each other. We are the space. We are the weather. We maybe don't even need to separate ourselves from viruses. Could we even be one with the viruses? There is nothing that can separate us. And if we're like Krishnamurti, if we take his secret that we don't mind what is, we don't mind what is. It doesn't matter what is. Let's take it in deeper. It doesn't mean, did you prefer this? Would you like to have this? Is this what you desire? No, those thoughts are not needed. It is. We are. And let's bring that consciousness back to the thing that was on the other end of our tug of war. Can you bring that secret and make space for it? Make space to not mind it. When we're in the tug of war, we're contracted. And now we have space, we're open. And not minding what is just allowing. It has nothing to do with our opinion, but it's grace. It's receiving. Many of us are good doers and maybe not quite as good at receiving, although we seem to be getting better and better. I can feel it. I know it. And let's claim our being receivers of the light, of what is, of consciousness, of the gift that we are, of the flow. We are the universe. And that is us. Thank you, everybody. And when you want to come back to the room and you come back to each other, come back as the ocean. Come back as Osha. Come back as Krishnamurti. Come back as Diane. Come back as Robin or Raph, or Mary, or Cindy, or Jackie, who sent her greetings and couldn't be here tonight, or Elizabeth, or Rico, or Dove, or Isabel, or Rosalyn, or Wayne, or Yolanda. And isn't that great news that we are each other? There's nothing to do. I need do nothing. And if there's something to do, the I doesn't need to do it. It will be done. You will be moved. I was telling some of the people who were here in my Monday group that when I saw Guru in India, Ramesh Balsekar, a great teacher of non-duality, he said something very lasting. When you hear I need do nothing, many people say, well, why shouldn't I just lay on the couch and do nothing? And he always said, lay there, try. And pretty soon you'll get a thought. And the thought will be, I need to get a drink of water, or I need to make a phone call. And how do you know if it's the separate you or the force, the oneness that is all there is? Because it feels the same, it sounds the same. Now, sometimes the personal self is judgmental, and then we know that's a separate self. But when it's a thought like I need to get a glass of water, you can't know. But the important part of what he said that stayed with me was not you can't know, was that it sounds the same. So why not accept the oneness and claim that? Claim that even our thoughts can be held in oneness. So there's nothing that's objectionable. There are no mitigating thoughts. There are no mistakes. It's always, always perfect. So in this second, there's nothing even to forgive because all is one. And the past and the future are Einstein time. That's this second. All happening at the same moment. Thank you. Oh, and then one thing I always forget, go back to your number. Maybe I'll start remembering because I don't always forget. I do remember sometimes. Go back to that number and bring your consciousness now to that number and see if it isn't different. Give it a number now. And I want to say, John, thanks you.
Thank you so much, Rosalyn. It was so beautiful. I was going to ask, does anyone want to share anything that may have come up for you during this meditation? Anything at all? Whatever it is, be helpful to everyone to share it.
Did your numbers change? Does anybody want to just say your numbers? They went from a 5 to a 2 or a 10 to a 1 or. Diane, thank you. And Elizabeth?
Well, I started off as an 8, and my struggle would be thoughts of being alone. And they are with me a lot during the day, sometimes at night. And I can truly scare myself with these thoughts at times. And I liked this I don't mind phrase. And so that was kind of going on in my head. I really don't mind. And that was a sort of new experience for me. And so I felt that at the end, I would say I've come down to a 4. in terms of being bothered by these thoughts of being alone. And I felt more lightness, more expansion, and more willingness to, when the thoughts come up, to look at them and say, I don't really mind those thoughts.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Making space for them.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's so beautiful. Thank you, Diane. Elizabeth?
So the thing that came up for me, I was in a Zoom meeting this morning, the yoga and meditation thing with Jennifer, and she left and made me the host. And I was just starting to talk to the classmates who were there. And somebody ended the meeting, not in our meeting, but in the ministry. They ended it, and it's just annoying when that happens. And so I had put a 3 to a 5 on that. I don't think it really was as big as a 5, but I definitely was tweaked to the point of a 3. And now I would say it's a 0, 2, or 2, and I'm leaning more toward the 0, really. Yeah. And I love that I don't mind anything anymore. Wow. That's very, very useful. Yeah.
And many gurus have picked that up after it's attributed to Krishnamurti, but many enlightened, quote unquote, people have used that phrase. And I've known people who with serious physical illnesses that have been in my house, so I could feel that it was true. This one person, and she was very disabled and in pain, and said, I don't mind.
Wow.
Mind.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say that in the Course in Miracles, lesson 1 and lesson 2 say the exact same thing. And I've often said lesson 1 and lesson 2 is the entire course. There's no accident he put it as lesson 1 and lesson 2. In fact, if you look at the introduction, he says, I can give you the whole course in 3 lines. He says that in the introduction. He says, what's real can't be threatened. What's unreal doesn't even exist. Herein lies the peace of God. So then you turn to lesson 1, and what does it say? Nothing I see here means anything. So the word meaning and pay it no mind is really the same thing as I see it. And then just in case you still are taking it seriously and it means something to you, he says, go on to lesson 2. And lesson 2 is very clear. In case anything means something to me, just let me remember I'm the one that's given all the meaning to it. So you're entitled to give meaning to the meaningless, until finally you as Elizabeth said, that's a good idea. I'm not going to give any meaning to this stuff anymore. That's what Krishnamurti came to 50 years ago. I have one more story about Krishnamurti. If you notice during the process that Rosalyn just did, you all went within and you looked within. It's a very famous story, and I heard it from a guy named Jim Dunn, who used to be a teacher at ACIM Gather, which I started many years ago. And he was a follower of Krishnamurti. He also did the Course of Miracles. He lived in California at the time, and Krishnamurti came to California to give a talk, and people came from hundreds of miles around to hear Krishnamurti in California. And it was scheduled to be at 8 o'clock at a certain stadium, and people were there. 8:15 came and Krishnamurti wasn't there. 8:30 came, he still wasn't there. Finally he comes in at 8:40. He walks across the stage, picks up the microphone and says 2 words: look within. And then he put the mic back, walked off the stage, and everyone said, what? What does that mean, look within? Now, the joke of that really is, if he gave an hour talk, which people were expecting at least, you probably would never have heard of that talk at all. I mean, just another one of his talks. But he left them with that one idea: look within. And you notice whenever you do a process whether it's with Rosalyn or anyone, that's what you're doing. You're looking within, because looking without is perception. And perception is always mistaken. I was thinking of Simone Biles. I mean, she now talks about the twisties. Twisties is really mistaken perception. So when you don't know what's up and what's down, and that's exactly what the course is saying. You know, you think that your greatest achievements are something, you know, wondrous. He says actually they're usually your biggest retreats, and what you think is your biggest retreats is really your greatest achievements. We have things upside down. If you're doing the course, you know he uses that expression over and over. It's upside down. So I just wanted to put that into the mix. The idea that whenever you look outside, you're gonna be using the ego's perception. The ego uses the body's eyes, but when you close the eyes and you look within, and you don't have to close the eyes to look within. I kind of consider myself a Tibetan Buddhist. Tibetan Buddhists use open eye meditation instead of closed eye. That doesn't mean anything. Rosalyn likes to use the word soft eyes, which is from Aikido. They use soft eyes, which so the eyes are not your vision. Your vision is your spiritual vision, which doesn't have to look at people's forms or bodies to see. As Jesus was a man who saw the face of Christ on all that he met, and he remembered God. So what is the face of Christ? It's soft eyes. Are there any thoughts on that at all? Maybe Rosalyn?
Yes, that's beautiful. And I did want to add something. I love everything you said, Dove. And I think it all really lives for us with your amplification about perception. Raise your hand if you got something more out of Dove's just description of perception is looking out. I could feel it, that everybody going, oh yeah, oh, maybe I heard that before, but I hear it differently right now. I could feel that in the room. So thank you, Dove. And Elizabeth, I wanted to say one thing that's very meaningful to me about your saying, well, maybe it could be almost a zero. So much of my awareness is going around the word claiming it now. If we don't claim it, like if you walked away and said instead of a zero, it was a 2, that would be not claiming the actual piece that you have about it now. Mm-hmm. And it's not that we'll be punished. We won't be punished, but we won't feel and experience and embody the benefits of not the personal self, but of that expanded place. And that happened to me first about Melissa when I was shaken and I realized I wasn't suffering, and I did remember she had still passed. So how could I not be suffering? But for a while I kept it to myself and I didn't claim it. And I was like, oh, look at that. I didn't, but the more I claimed the knowing, being the knower of something super important, and it couldn't be that I was given that just for me. That probably is the biggest trajectory force that pushed me out of being a more private person to being wanting to share it, because the gifts have grown and grown by claiming more and more, not in the egotistical sense of look at me, but oh, there's something to the knowing. And the knowing, everybody can have this if they're suffering. Suffering is not in the millisecond. It's only what we add about the future. Like if we take what Diane said, right? It's not the millisecond about being alone. It's like, what does that mean for the future? And, look at the past and whatever stories there would be about how it'll be when you're older. I'm just guessing. Is that right? It's not like being cold in the second. It would be like, I'm worried about being cold, which I can actually do, put a lot of clothes, like take a lot of clothes in case I'm cold, which is that's another subject. But right, I mean, I don't know if that's valuable to you, but in this millisecond, if you were to do an inquiry of, and if you say, yes, I am lonely in this second, where is that? What is that? Show me that. You know, rather than try to get rid of it, just let it see it. Maybe now you can tell us could you do that now? Would that be appropriate? Would you be comfortable?
I think so.
Yeah. So let's just go into when I said, are you lonely in this millisecond?
I am not.
Not.
No.
Okay. Now take yourself the way it usually happens, in your own place, and you have this thought, I'm alone.
Yes, I have this thought, I'm alone, and it frightens me. I start feeling afraid.
Okay, let me stop you right there, and let's try and experiment with something else. And I know Diane, so I have a little more comfort in talking to you this way. I hope it's okay. So if we don't label it as I'm afraid, and we don't label it, what was the other word you used? I'm afraid, I get scared, and what, fear, and what was the other thing?
Well, it might have been, well, it can be panic.
Okay, so and let's not, so that's, I mean, this is so useful. I don't know if it will be useful to you, but I know it's teaching that we can all keep on using. Once we label anything like fear or panic or any of those words, they have a story with them. Even if I don't know your story, I have a story on panic. I have a story on fear. We all have stories, and that brings in a whole load on top of what your sensation is. So let's keep it to a sensation. You have the thought and you have this sensation. Where is it in your body?
The sensation would probably be right around my heart.
Mm-hmm. And let's
Right.
go to your heart and notice that it might be constricted. It might feel tight. Is that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And let's just breathe into your heart, and let's just make space around it in this millisecond. We're not calling it good. We're not calling it bad. We're not calling any emotions. We're not labeling it. We're just entering this millisecond and making space for a tightened heart. And breathe deeper and around. And what if it's just that, a little constriction? How are you feeling now?
I'm feeling better because I am focused on my heart area and also focused on my breath.
And you're in the second. You're not in any story. There's no story in the second. When you're with your breath, there's no story. And also, if you look for the space between the inhalation and the exhalation, look for that space. And something you could claim as a possibility is that prior thought that you've had often could disappear and be nothing. It could come and you don't need to add paragraphs to it. It could be just a constriction in the body, which the next second with some breath is not there. It need not have a paragraph or a story. And if any of us take this for ours, if we're going to add to what's going on with a paragraph, feelings last 90 seconds, sensations last 90 seconds in the brain. And then there's a new sensation unless we add paragraphs to it. So you could be free. You could actually claim that. In this moment, I'm free of that. In this millisecond, do you have anything to say about it, Diane?
But what came to me was it's the moment between the expiration and the inhalation, and then the inhalation and the exhalation. And that piece started becoming more clear and more prevalent.
Mhm.
And that's where the freedom would be for me.
Yeah. And if you think of, I don't mind, everybody in your own bodies, think of the guru that said, I don't mind. How is it in your body when you don't mind? There's space. There's space, right? Anybody else have anything to add to that? When you make space and in this millisecond, don't add paragraphs. Oh, Dove, do you have your hand up? I didn't see. Go ahead.
Well, actually, this whole thing reminds me of something. In the Course, it uses the expression being and having are the same. Way back at S, before I ever did a Course of Miracles, I always say if I didn't do S, I probably would never have done the Course of Miracles. And S is that thing by Werner Erhard. Werner said the exact same thing, by the way. He called it be, do, have. In this world, we think that in order to be who I would like to be, I have to go out and do. It's in the doing that we do all those things in our head. We stress, we strain, we plan, we try to figure out, we try to get better, we want to be special. So in this world, the ego says, if you really want to have something, you have to do something in order to get there. So the being and the having are not the same. In Course in Miracles terms, being and having are the same. What God creates, he gives you everything. God gives all to all. Notice that's the first of the 3 lessons of the Holy Spirit. Chapter 6, chapter 6, section 5, A, B, and C is the 3 lessons of the Holy Spirit. The first would reverse all the laws of this world. To have all, to have, give all to all. Now the ego said, well, that's crazy. If I give all to all, I'll have nothing for myself. And in the ego's terms of you or me, us or them, which is division, separation, bodies, that's obviously true. But in reality, there is no separation between all as one. So that's what heaven is, sharing all with all. Being and having are the same. You already have everything. That's why you are as God created. You are the being and the having are one and the same. There's no doing. And as you were saying, I think it was you, Rosalyn, who said, try and do nothing. You sit on a chair, you cannot do nothing. Sooner or later, a thought will come up. That's the ego's thoughts. The ego says, well, you forgot to turn off the stove. Something is melting. You better put it back in the refrigerator. There's always something that comes up in in your mind that takes away the peace. So I think in fact, it was one of the Indian Nisargadatta said the hardest thing in the world is to do nothing. I am 81 now, and I am retired or semi-retired, and I can tell you it is not easy to do nothing because literally all during the day up comes these thoughts like, well, you should do this, you should do that. No, I need do nothing, which is chapter 18, section 7. And Jesus says in that area, in that paragraph, in the last, next to the last paragraph, chapter 18, section 7, he said, these 4 words, I need do nothing, will save you a century of meditation, trying to figure things out, trying to plan things. It'll save you 100 years. I need do nothing because you already are what God created. You don't have to do anything to be complete, to be whole, to be perfect. We are the whole perfect, innocent Son of God now.
I love
And
what you
now.
spoke of, and I want to add something to connect it up to Diane. Give all to all. I got this thought, what if we each take the thing, let's say, I don't know what Diane's on the end of the rope, but let's just make up that that's what it was. And let's put in for all of us what might be on the end of our rope. So it could be Elizabeth's meeting or whatever. And then what if we've applied what Dove said and give all to all, even to that thought, even if we were giving all to a thought, it doesn't mean that we're adding paragraphs. It means making space, allowing it. That's what that friendliness that we talk about, that there's no thought that you need to fight with. But what if we embody it as though it was giving all like we think of to another person, but we give all in terms of space, then there isn't a thought that can hurt us. There is no room for judgment if there's space, if there's that friendly ocean. So raise your hand if what Diane processed for us could be applied to ourselves. Breathing around it. Look at that, all the hands going up, making room, having a friendliness, breathing in, breathing out, and looking for that space in between. Now we're in the oneness without a whole 5 or 10 minute exercise. That space can remind us right now. Duh.
I want to say we're at the top of the hour and we do have time. I don't know, Cindy, if it's up to you. We have time to play that other song from Pat.
I'm ready to play.
Okay, so
With-
remember, we're here every Tuesday at 7 o'clock. It's called Join Us Tuesdays for Present Happiness. And here's Pat Luboff and her husband's song. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
I let go of my judgments, let go of my fears, let go of my chains, and I am free. I become one of God's children. I feel His love for me. I have been given everything I need. Love is the way. Love is the way. Love is the way. I walk in gratitude. Love is the way. I see the light in you. Love is the way. I walk in gratitude. I reach out to my brothers, reach out to forgive, reach out for help to understand. There is just one way to heaven. You can't get in alone. We have to walk and sing in hand in hand. Love is the way. 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 I walk in gratitude. Love is the way. Love is the way. I see the light in you. Love is the way. I walk in gratitude. Love is the way. 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 I walk in gratitude. Love is the way. Love is the way. I see the light in you. Love is the way. I walk in gratitude.
Wow.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Yeah. That happens to be today's review lesson 215. Love is the way I walk in gratitude. Just happens to be.
Yay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Everybody have a blessed
Thank you.
evening.
Very nice.
Mhm.
Thank